I'm so glad today I was allowed to not use my crutches and start weight bearing on this whole foot, and it's much easier to be without crutches. And just as a catch-up for people, the x-rays, the doctor thought things were doing really well. I wear this until September 25th and get another x-ray. And if all is well, I can release the air cast. So light, I shine the light of God, is the theme of this month. And as I was pondering, what am I going to speak to that? I had to cancel my talk in July because of the surgery on my foot. Having that surgery on my foot put me into I would say like a chemically induced concussion. The strong antibiotics that would prevent the bone from getting infected, plus the painkillers that had extra mojo because of the bone pain. I couldn't function in the world. I couldn't look out in the world for more than a few seconds. My eyes could not coordinate. I had to go in, go in, go in. I couldn't stay at the place where I misstepped on the step and caused my foot to fracture. It's a Victorian home, 16 steps up to the bathroom, going, that's not going to be the thing. So I put a call out into my Facebook land and asked if anyone could host me for at least a week. And so a lovely young man who resonates with my work, Sage, invited me to his house. I was couch surfing, and I could crawl to and from the bathroom. I couldn't even use my crutches. I was so unsteady. But when I asked myself, what's this about? Because I take ownership of everything. I'm learning to take ownership of everything. There's a reason. Whoops, got a little technical challenge going on here. Show me spirit, show me high self, show me my wisdom. What's this about? And I kept getting the message. Go inward. Go inward. Every time I tried to do more than what was absolutely necessary to text my family or phone my family, anytime I tried to go onto the computer, it was like, no, go in. And I had an experience a year ago of integrating my high self. Do I need a new battery here or something? It's really kicking in. No.
Don't put really better than it.
Okay,
It's just taxis.
It's the what?
The taxis. It's a taxi cab.
Oh, it's a taxi cab?
Yeah,
Goes in.
exactly.
Oh, it goes in and out. Okay, I'll just allow it goes in and out. So I had an experience of allowing my high self to be embodied into my body, and that was a year ago in June, and now in July the invitation was to spend time in this cocoon that I had been gifted with, so that I could have refused to go in, right? I could have refused that invitation, but I decided I wanted every moment of that invitation of spending time being with me in my inner world. And Jesus talks about going into our secret garden, and there, in the secret garden within our own heart, to be with our Creator. And so that's what I gifted myself with, that time. And I recognize, this whole thing of being the light of God, and what is the light of God? I'll talk about that in a minute. Being that, I have to prepare myself to have practices to allow myself to move away from forgetting who I truly am, forgetting my true divine nature, and cultivating practices that allow me to have an embodied cellular memory of that. If any of you have learned instrument, if any of you are athletes, if any of you have had an injury and you need to recover, you know it takes time, and it takes conscious effort, conscious attention, conscious awareness of Well, see, if you're learning a new instrument, you have to notice when you're doing it the way you don't want to do it and stop it. Not just keep repeating it over and over. You stop it, you play with the little, oh, let me get this, oh, and then when you get that little bit, then you keep adding on the pieces. And eventually you get cellular memory so that these musicians can be up here just playing away, singing, doing all sorts of things, and their body knows what to do. And so shining the light of God to me is twofold. It's that cultivation practices on purpose to become the living, breathing, shining light. And the second aspect for me is to be very present to what arises that is not of that light. My immature ego. Charles Fillmore talks about in the Revealing Word, where he gives definitions of how he's using these terms. And he talks about the ego being the immature ego. That's the child that doesn't know how to cope in the world, is learning the best it can to cope in the world. And then he talks about how we come into mastery and have a spiritual ego that shepherds and takes care of that little ego when it shows up. So for me, it's really important for me to notice what stops my light from shining. My fear, my anger, my jealousy, my doubt, my times of not knowing, my times of not faith. And to be present to that. Now, for me, I recognize sometimes all I need to notice is, wow, I notice I'm really triggered into blank. Is there anything I'm to know about that? And sometimes there isn't. It's just making a new choice. Oh, I've been kind of irritated all morning and I'm going into a meeting with someone and I am choosing to put that in a bubble of light and love, and I'm choosing to go into that meeting to the best of my ability in the truth of who I am. But I have come to recognize when those little voices or big voices or those triggerings keep happening, it's been very helpful for me to turn to that and say, hello. Fear, come sit with me. Anger, come sit with me. Anxiety, come sit with me. What do you need from me? How can I serve you today? Matt Kahn is a spiritual leader. He talks about turning to the 3-year-old little ego that's in its fear. And he said, you know, if you're in your wonderful moments as a wise adult, you don't turn to a 3-year-old that's in fear and cranky and whatnot and, you know, tell it to shut up and put it in the corner and, oh, I'm going to just exile you. I'm going to just get rid of you out of my life. No, you get down to that 3-year-old and knowing you're not going to let the 3-year-old run your life, but you are going to pay attention to that 3-year-old and ask it, what do you need? And I know there are healers and counselors, social workers in this room. My work is inner child healing, you might say, or bringing the split parts of the psyche that are split off either through trauma or a moment where the immature aspect of us makes a decision that the situation we're in means I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And even though it might not look like a trauma moment to anybody else outside of me, in that moment, some aspect of me created that belief. And so I do feel, for me to shine my light in the world, it is important for me to turn and look at the lower frequencies in the consciousness, what do you call that, consciousness spiral?
Yeah.
Of David Hawkins, where you're at 0 point, you have love and above, and then you have the fear, the shame, the blame, the guilt, the doubt. When I'm flipping down into that, it is helpful for me to notice if it's repeating over and over again. There's some part of me, some aspect of my psyche, of my personality that wants to be seen and heard. And this concept of if I'm the light, so I'm just going to mention what is the light of God. So to me, the emanation of the one power and one presence that we talk about, why are we here? The one power and one presence. It's in our, there's principles, unity principles are tucked here, but that's our first principle. There's one power and one presence, and we're a part of that. That this emanation of the one power and one presence made manifest into our perceivable world, being readily perceived by the eye or the understanding. We call this one power by many names around the world, don't we? And to me, manifest, when I looked up, well, that's what came to me. I just like, that's what wanted to go on the page. I'm going, well, what's manifest mean? In the dictionary, it says readily perceived by the senses, and especially by the sense of sight, perceived by the eye or the understanding. So it's not just visible light in this case, is it? Can you feel the energy, like the light of love when we're in sync with one another? I can feel that energy. If you ever saw the Celestine Prophecy movie, they show that visual of people connecting, and when we've got that love flowing, and when we have our barriers up, that these energies, I'm either manifesting from love or I'm manifesting from all those fear-based feelings and perceptions. And emanation is an abstract but perceptible thing that issues or originates from a source. So we are, what do we talk about here? That we are the emanation, we are the expression, the embodied expression of our source. And we are called to be the light of the world. For those of you that resonate with any of the words that are in the Bible, as you know, we look at the Bible metaphysically. What is the teaching? What are the stories talking about, and how are they applicable in the everyday life? And Jesus calls us to be the light of the world. And he says, you don't shine your light, then put a bushel basket over it at the top of the hill and then expect people to see you. No, you shine your light. You let your light be seen. Now, I was also told in meditation by Jesus some years ago that use the invisibility cloak. He said, you know that invisibility cloak in Harry Potter? He said, use that invisibility cloak again, Celestine Prophecy. The people are cloaking themselves in a bubble of invisibility when there's armed people around them. They stay in their cloak of invisibility until the fear shifts them to not be in the cloak. So there is a place to let our light shine, and then there's wisdom to know, well, my inner light always shines. Just because I put the invisibility cloak on doesn't mean my inner light needs to dim at all. It's just my wisdom has said, in this moment, it's actually a good thing to camouflage yourself. So I'm still shining my light and my wisdom, born of experience, of all of your experience, where you know when you're in mastery, growing mastery of your own energy, you know how to let yourself be like big in a room, right? So Art of Feminine Presence, a lovely lady named Jane Groover, talks about letting ourselves be in ownership of the light bubble that we're in. So some of you know auric fields, light bubble, etc. That here, if I am wanting to engage with everyone in this room, I have to let my light go out into the room, but it still has a container. I'm not kind of slathering my energy all over everybody. I'm still containing my energy. But I want to be communicating with the people at the back of the room. So if my energy, I'm just going to bring it in like right here, right here, right here. It's like right here. And if I just bring it in right here and I'm really close, and then I let it go out. So having mastery over what we do with that bubble of light is really important for all of us. And when I looked at the courage, why did the term courage come to me? I sit with the invitation to talk and the theme and say, why am I being called to speak on this? You know, we have to do this weeks before, sometimes 6 weeks before. I only had a few weeks for this one, but just show me, Spirit, show me what I can put down on paper that's going to go into the advertising. And then I have to live into that talk. And so courage. And I thought, courage seemed important. If we are going to shine our light out in a world where most people are not even aware of their true divine nature, they don't understand a lot of the conversations that we're having here, but you might notice more and more people out of the blue that you never had conversations around something enlightened or awakened. Do you notice they're just like, wow, they start talking about something and then I can feel into it a bit, and then they talk a little more and I can feel into it. And I think there are a lot of people who are having a lot of awakenings happening. But this idea of courage is the ability to do something that frightens you, strengthen the face of pain or grief. Courage is commonly defined as being motivated from the heart to do something brave. And I do believe in today's world it still takes courage to be motivated from the heart to do something brave. One writer, Rebecca Perkins, talks about when someone said, oh, you're so courageous, and she said, well, I don't really see myself as courageous, but she's kind of thought about that. What are other people seeing in me? And if I do own that I do have courage, what does that mean in everyday life? And she came up with these thoughts in her journal. Courage is saying sorry. It's knowing when to say enough. Courage is saying, I love you. It's saying yes, saying no. It's being truthful with oneself. It's knowing that you're screwed up and owning that. And so it's like, okay, I messed up. Now what? Courage is admitting we cannot cope alone. I've certainly had to be okay with that, with this foot. I had to put asks out. Now, I was doing the best I could to put an ask out without an attachment that it had to look a certain way on exactly my time frame, with exactly the people. Just, this is my need. Is anybody available for that? And I've had those needs met by someone who is available. So that sense of being from the heart when I asked and not just in the mind. Courage is letting go. It's reaching out. It's standing up for something we believe in. It's burning our boats and never going back. It's doing something new. It's being willing to receive. The courage is trusting someone again, choosing love over fear. The courage to choose again and again, and that came up in something, maybe one of the readings about the courage to choose again. I guess it was in faith, it was in the daily word. Being able to choose over and over again. Where I am in the moment, is this where I'm choosing to stay? And those lower frequencies, when they call me to be with them, when the fear calls me to come sit with it, when my grief says, don't run away from me again, please. Let's sit for a while. Let's watch a sad movie. Let's hear a sad song. When I need to go for a walk, well, I can't remember, when I need to do something to release, aggressive energy or anger or whatever, to let myself be with that, knowing that that is assisting me in polishing my, what is it, the shades, a hurricane lamp, where you've got to have the glass shade over the light. And if you don't have that glass shade polished up and clean, then you're not going to get as much light from the candle or the light that's inside. So to me, taking care of the light and the inside job of what's not allowing me to shine my light, to be my true divine essence in expression, returning from forgetting. So you notice our process is we have a moment of remembering, and then we can forget. Maybe you've got a whole day of remembering, then something happens and bam, you realize, oh my gosh, I have been totally knocked off of remembering the truth of who I am. And it is this remembering and forgetting, this expansion and contraction that causes movement, causes friction. You think about those big man-o-war jellyfish, how they move. Like there's an expansion and a contraction, expansion and contraction. So I encourage us all to remember, just because we are remembering and remembering and remembering, not to get discouraged when we suddenly go into forgetting, and to return to that faith over and over and over again. And there are times where I cannot see what I cannot see. I don't know what I don't know. And so I have other people in my world that help me see that sticky note that's got a note to self on the back, and I can't reach it, and I can't see it, and I can't turn to be like, it's that, I can't read it. I need someone else to come and help me assist. And that's one of the reasons I'm in spiritual community, is so I have community that can help me as I am making my way through this contraction and expansion of life, going up into love and above, and then cycling down to fear. And then that zero point, cultivating ability to be in the 0 point. Charles Fillmore talks about this. Those of you who've taken Life of Prayer, or you read Think and Grow Rich, they always encourage us to go into the 0 point and go into the silence and listen in the silence, where we've quieted the egoic mind that knows what it knows and is trying to cultivate the world from what it already knows, rather than the expansiveness of the infinite possibility of the creative void, where nothing is yet manifest, but all the potentiality is there. So this is another way that I find helpful here at Unity, that the meditation of being in the silence is really important. And the Heart Math Institute is showing it's just not about being in the mind. It's no longer think and grow rich. It's, to me, be in the heart. Harmonize the mind. The heart is what Greg Braden has, harmonizing your mind and your heart. But I realize we also need the core. And Gary Simmons talks about that in The Eye of the Storm. We know this from martial arts, we must engage our core as well. So having our mind, our heart, our core harmonizing, and seeing our life through the lens of the heart, letting the mind be in service through the heart, letting our core human existence see and express through the lens of the heart. And so I invite you to think about the ways that you are already shining your light. We're going to be going into a meditation to honor the ways that we are already shining our light, and to encourage ourselves to expand what we're already doing and calling forth that which is for our lives.